Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing and That's Badass Wood Art. Remember to use promo code CTPocket for 20% off any one item at that'sbadasswoodart.com. And be sure to like and subscribe. We're super close to 3,000 subscribers, and when we get there, every one of our subscribers will be entered for a chance to win a custom Skol piece by That's Badass Wood Art. With the draft just a few days away, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to pound the table for our guys, the guys that we want. So we ranked 5 guys in this draft that we would be screaming at Kwesi in the draft room to go get if there was a chance to do so. And we don't really have a way to go through this. So I guess I'll start with you, Ryan. We'll just start at 5. We'll each do our 5. You can mock each other, agree with people, whatever you feel like. But I'm going to put you on the spot first, Ryan. Who's your number 5 for gotta get this guy if we can?
Yeah, so the way I kind of did this exercise is I did break it down by position groups in a way, not necessarily of importance, but just position groups. I started with linebacker just because I think
Pick the
that's a
same one I
need.
did.
I think it's a need, and I think that there's some linebackers in this class I really like. I couldn't really decide between these two, so I'm actually going to have 2 names here. It's not my 5 and 4. This is just my 5. I'd be really happy if we got DeMarvion Overshone or Noah Sewell in the mid rounds. I'm a big fan of both these guys. I think they both would fit this scheme really well. Overshone, former safety, converted to linebacker. Big guy at like 6'3", but not like mass wise. I think he's only like 225 or so. But he can move sideline to sideline. He's got that ability to kind of be effective in coverage, but he's also a pretty good blitzer. And in this scheme with Brian Flores, I assume we're going to be sending our linebackers semi-often in blitz packages, which is why I think he'd be a good fit. Where he does get into some trouble is in run support. He once a lineman gets his hands on him, he gets a little stuck sometimes. But Noah Sewell, similar. I think he's actually probably a bit more of a better blitzer. They use him actually even on the edge as like an edge rusher at times. So he's got a little versatility there. He played relatively well in coverage, but I think that he could be a very strong blitzer. I mean, if you're a blitzing team, he's a guy you want on your team. So at that position, I think that would have been a good fit. So I couldn't decide between the two, so I just said both.
So Ryan's list is already a top 6, but
yeah. And I'm going to have a top 7, by the way, just so you know.
Oh my gosh.
Miles, I'll be there too.
Number 5 on your list is?
So number 5 for me is Jacorian Bennett. I've talked about him before.
Ooh.
From the going into the Senior Bowl. Sorry, I'm pulling up his profile because I had it and then I lost it. But what I really liked about Jacorian Bennett, he's not as big. He's 5'10"-ish. Super fast though, super aggressive, and he's the type of cornerback for me that he's sticky. He likes to get in your face, especially for a smaller guy. He's super aggressive. He's not afraid to get in the run game. He has that inside out versatility. I kind of how Vikings fans really loved who's the Duke Shelley. Like I think I think Bennett's more explosive. Bennett's stockier, but like there's that like mentality that I think he kind of has that's similar to like a Duke Shelley, and I think. When he's at Maryland, he got overshadowed by Deonte Banks, who's probably going to go pretty in the first round,
top 20 maybe.
Yeah, top 20, top 25. But I think he kind of got overlooked because of him. But he held his own on the other side of the field, and he got to play inside and out. And so for me, again back at the Senior Bowl, he was a guy going in that was very like underrated, and you just saw how explosive. He was, and you see it time and time again on film. And then when he ran, he ended up running a 4. Where is it? Come on,
I think it was like a 4.31 or something like that.
Yes, 4.30 flat. And so like his athleticism is just insane. And so I just think a guy like that could be sticky. The Vikings could use a guy that has that explosion. They're looking for more explosive athletes on the back end of the defense, and I think Brian Flores could use that inside-out flexibility, that kind of similar in the way that they got Byron Murphy too.
I'm down for that. I like Jacorian Bennett.
Yep, good player.
My number 5 is Washington State linebacker Dayon Henley. I think you kind of watch some of these players. I don't know if the Vikings, we don't have really a pick in his range. I think he probably goes early second round. But he's definitely one of those guys for me that has that it factor. He's a super explosive linebacker. He can drop back into coverage. His ability to just kind of sift through defenders and make plays in the run game stood out to me. Ryan, you talked about like the blitzing ability that Brian Flores is going to want with his linebackers, and obviously Overshone and I already forgot the other guy that you said.
Sewell
have that ability, but I think Henley does as well. And
the only reason why I didn't pick Henley, by the way, is because I just didn't think he would be possible for us. That's the only he is my favorite linebacker in this class.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a stud. He's gonna crush it. I'll stand on the table right now and say he'll be a good player in the NFL. But yeah, that's my number 5. So we'll just keep going around the clock here. Ryan, who is your number 4?
Number 4 for me, and I did take my other cornerback off this list, and so I am going to have a total of 6. Tyreek Stevenson. I'm a big fan of Tyreek Stevenson. I think that he plays with a feisty demeanor. I think that he's sticky in coverage, gets his hands on a lot of balls, and that sounds bad. But what I love about him too is like he's got that height weight speed.
Guys. Come on,
right?
No,
he's got that height weight
grow
speed ability, right? Like I mean, he's like I think 6 foot even, about 200 pounds. Ran a 4.45, which again isn't like crazy fast, but fast enough to play in this league. And like I said, he knows how to stay in the receiver's hip and kind of mirror him quite a bit. And he's really good off the line. So if you're playing any sort of press man, he's really good in that scenario. And I think that he'll be a really good prospect. I'm seeing like ranges for him in mocks that I've seen anywhere from like 2nd round to 4th round. So I don't really know quite where he's going to be. So if we could get him in like that 3rd round range, I'd be ecstatic. I think he's going to be a really good player.
He's one of those guys you just like tell him to go shadow a receiver and like don't worry about anything else, and he's going to thrive. Like
I was sad because when we watched him at the Senior Bowl, he was doing really well, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
And so they said, "All right, you're done." But he was a treat to watch for sure.
Yeah.
Miles, who do you got for number 4?
For me, should come as no surprise, a wide receiver. Jaden Reed from Michigan State. I'm like in that like third round range, 3rd, 4th round range. Give me a wide receiver of his abilities, and he's just so explosive. And I'm not saying he is Stephon Diggs, but there's a lot of similarities to their game coming out of college and how he was utilized at Michigan State. He kind of did a little bit of everything for them, especially this year with Jalen Nailor going to the Vikings last year. But I just think he has that like inside out versatility. He can win on the outside. He's not the biggest guy, 5'11", like 190, but he's explosive. He runs crisp and nuanced routes. He seems to understand how to get open and create separation. And his yards after the catch and run after the catch ability is underrated in this draft class. And I think he's just kind of getting overlooked by some of the other explosive guys. Like to me, if you can't get a Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison type earlier in the draft, Jaden Reed is like a really good consolation prize. And I think he just has an ability to get open and catch the ball through contact too. And so I don't know. I think he's a guy that could really fit what the Vikings like to do: motion him around, move him around, pair him with KJ Osborne and Justin Jefferson, and kind of let him feast a little bit. And Jalen Nailor too. I shouldn't forget that name. But like, I think he could be a good fit here and kind of what KOC likes to do and what he looks for in a wide receiver.
I actually, like, through all the conversations that we've had, I've never actually gone and watched Jaden Reed. Maybe I probably should this week before we hit
you
off
should.
the
It's
draft,
a treat,
but
actually.
He's fun.
He's awesome,
fun.
yeah.
But yeah, I know you've been hammering the or pounding the table for quite some time on
At first it was Michael Wilson,
Jaden
but
Reed.
then but at first it was Michael Wilson. I like Michael Wilson, but the more I like dove into Jaden Reed, it's just like he just became the guy for me.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll go check him out for sure. My number 4 is Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina.
That's who I was my 7th guy, was Cam Smith.
Well, we got it covered, right? A lot of the same traits that you talk about with Tyreek Stevenson, I see the same kind of stuff with Cam Smith. Just a physical, sticky cornerback who plays with a lot of confidence. I mean, if you want a true outside cornerback or a true number one cornerback who can, shadow these receivers and have the confidence to do so, he's got that. I also think his technique is really good. He's not really being talked about. He was early in the draft process, but as time has kind of gone on, people have stopped talking about him. Maybe because he's out of our range. I could see them pulling the trigger at 23 for Cam Smith. I think he is first round talent. I think he's just getting kind of pushed back, but his technique is really good. He's really patient. He's kind of like a read and react kind of cornerback. And I don't know. I think if you traded back on out of 23, I think in that 30 to 40 range would be a perfect spot for Cam Smith. So
big fan.
Number 3, Ryan.
Number 3, I'm guessing he's going to be on your list as well, Matt, but is Keanu Benton.
Boom. That's my number 3 too.
Well, there we go. Maybe we can just duel this this part here. So I'm a big fan of Keanu Benton. I actually, if you guys aren't following me on Twitter, Sports Guy Rye, I just put out my top 10. Nice plug, yeah. I put out my top 10 for each position, and surprisingly, I think to probably a lot of people, I have Keanu Benton as my number 2 D tackle behind Jalen Carter. And the reason why is because I think he provides the ability not only as a pass rusher. I mean, he led the league or the college football in pressures from that position, but he also is a really good run defender. So you have kind of a dual threat there at that D tackle position. I think you can slide him over, at D end in a 3-4, add a nose tackle, add a 3-tech, depending on whatever you need him at. He can kind of play a little bit of everything. Almost kind of reminds me of, in my opinion, I think he'll be better, but of a Dalvin Tomlinson. So, a big fan of him. I think that he has the, ability and the upside to kind of hit to be one of the better D tackles in this league. And at that kind of, if he fails to meet expectations, I bet he still levels out or his force Dalvin Tomlinson. So I think he can, be a really good addition to this team.
I agree. I think his floor is a decent player. He would have to really fall off, I guess, and not translate to the NFL to be a bust, in my opinion. I think there's a ton of upside there that people, I think they know that there's upside there. They're just maybe trying to keep it on the down low just so they can snag him. I think there's a ton of pass rush ability there. He plays super violent. As soon as he hits those offensive linemen, you can just kind of see them jolt back a little bit. And he's quick for a big guy. He can kind of sift in and out of those offensive linemen. I'm with you. He's one of the first guys that I fell in love with in this draft process. And through everything that we've watched on him, continues to be that guy that, again, if you trade back, I don't think he's a first round. I don't think he'd go in the first round, but if you trade back, again, he's somebody on day 2 in that second round that you could definitely target.
When you dominate without having the amount of talent that, with the lack of talent that he had around him, and you can still dominate, that says something, especially in the Big Ten.
That's why I want to see him scenario if he's here in Minnesota and you have Harrison Phillips, Danielle Hunter, Davenport, who knows what's going on with Darius. You have all those guys around him. I mean, I think he's just going to flourish. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him. I'll say it. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Ooh, bold statement. I love it.
Yeah.
Miles, who do you got at 3?
That's how much Matt's been talking about Benton for a while. So,
is he your number 3?
No.
Oh.
I haven't watched enough of Benton to.
He's going to be all corners, receivers. That's all he cares about.
That's true. Because my next one is a corner safety hybrid. Jartavius Martin, Quan Martin, from Illinois. I like that. The one thing you'll learn about me is with cornerbacks, I like the sticky. I like the versatility. I like guys that can play nickel. I just think nickel is such a fun position and such a position that takes a lot of technique and ability and heads. You have to be super smart because you have to know everything of what's going on. It's becoming an even more important role within a defense, but also it's an underrated one still. And I think Quan Martin kind of has that really good versatility. He's explosive. but he's also not afraid to mix it up in the run game. He played with a lot of talent at Illinois, like the DBs in Illinois in general. I think those three guys, Sidney Brown, Quan Martin, and then obviously Devin Witherspoon. I think all those guys are going to be top like 75 picks, top 100 picks. For sure, like Devin Witherspoon, like CB1 type. But I don't know. I think Quan Martin has that. I really look for guys that like they're not afraid. They're really good off the edge when they blitz in that nickel position, but they can also drop back and cover deep if they have to. He kind of has that like. If you needed to slide him outside and play a little bit, he could probably do it and hold his own. It's not probably his like primary position you'd want him to be in, but I think if you wanted him to be a primary nickel and be like a safety hybrid type, I think he could really fill in that type of role. And in Minnesota, they really need a nickel, and I think you say third, fourth round for that guy, and you could get that kind of guy in that at pick 87, let's say. I'd be all about it. I think he could keep Byron Murphy on the outside. And he could be a guy that could not captain, but he could be like, a guy that really is a leader within that room.
I thought you were going to say Captain Munnerlin there for a second.
I do like that, though. That's a solid one.
Yeah. Since Ryan and I had the same number 3, Ryan, why don't you kick us off for your number 2?
Quarterback.
And
it's unlikely scenario. I had to throw it out there because of the recent news. Quarterback CJ Stroud. He's the only quarterback. Obviously, Bryce Young's going to go 1, so obviously I would trade up for him too. But if he happens to fall, I would trade up very far to get him. I'm a big believer in CJ Stroud. I do have him ranked number 1 as quarterback here for this draft class. I think that he possesses all the skills that you need to be successful in this league. Very, very, very accurate quarterback. Tons of arm strength, plenty of arm strength. He's got the mobility to move around and make things happen. And he, granted, yes, I know he's played with some ultra talented receivers, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave. But you know what? There's a lot of talent at receiver in the NFL too, right? And he's going to have that ability to work with, maybe Justin Jefferson, who's, better than all those guys previously mentioned. And, what we look for in quarterbacks, or what KOC looks for in quarterbacks, is guys who can be on schedule, play within his system and be very accurate and disperse the ball, to where it needs to be. He's the best quarterback in this class that can do that. And then if he gets in trouble, he can improvise and he can move and get off his spot and still make plays, both through the air and on the ground. I know you didn't do a ton of that in college, but he has the ability to, as we saw in the Georgia game. So big fan of him. He's the only one I'd trade up for.
What would you trade up for him? Like how much would you give up to get CJ Stroud?
I don't know. A lot. I'm a big believer.
2 first and this year's first.
So 3 total.
3 first. That's maybe a little rich, but again, when you have the opportunity to get your guy, if the Vikings say that he's their guy, absolutely I do that, just because you're not going to have an opportunity ever really to get to that quarterback that you want. So go get him if you have a chance to, if he's your guy. I think he's talented enough to do that, so I would do that. But I could, if we did that for Richardson or Levis, I would not be happy. So yeah. So yeah, I would do that though. Yeah, 2 first. That's the max, though. I couldn't do more than
that. Miles, who is your number 2? And I feel like we're going to have another duplicate here, but
yeah, I mean it's quarterbacks too. But I'm Stroud or Richardson. Give me either one of those guys to move up for. I know there's speculation. I think Peter King came out and said, his mock draft had Richardson at 23. I don't see that. Like again, Peter King's
nobody knows.
No, exactly though. That's the point, right? But I think if Richardson fell far enough, I think the Vikings might move up. I just don't see any team, even if they're behind the Vikings, whether it's the Vikings or behind them, or I just don't see a team letting him fall all the way to 23. Mm-hmm. Just like Justin Fields, the way he slid, like a team wasn't just going to let him just continue to fall down the board, right? Like there's just too much upside in talent at that position to let him fall that far. But I'd be okay moving like to 10. Like I view 10 as like the perfect like middle ground for the Vikings to be able to move up for a reasonable price.
Yep.
You
In
look at
theory,
kind
that
of-
should cost like a future first and maybe like our third pick.
and 87. Yeah, that's how I
Yeah,
look at it. I look at like the
Third
Kansas
round
City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills as like the two like shining examples of like how to move up. Like the Vikings could either look at using Daniil Hunter, Dalvin Cook, Zadarius Smith, one of those guys to like move up as a like an extra trade chip to move up. And then maybe they move up again. Who knows? But like Richardson and Stroud, besides Young's obviously the QB1, but like Richardson and Stroud, like I'd be okay moving heaven and earth essentially for like one of those two guys, just because I've said this too many times in my life. The Vikings have never done it.
Yep.
And those guys have the tools to be like high end level talent quarterbacks at the next level with the right coaching and right opportunity. And I think, and development. And I think the Vikings give them that. And I also think that it just solidifies that like the Vikings want to go after a quarterback that has upside, elite trait upside too. And both those guys have them.
Yeah, this is when we talk about like, and by the way, CJ Stroud was my number 2 as well. When we talk about, replicating kind of what the Kansas City Chiefs did back in the day with Alex Smith, like this is almost to a T that same scenario playing out if a CJ Stroud drops to that range. You get a full year to develop under Kirk Cousins, get in the building with Kevin O'Connell, and then honestly the future has ultimate potential.
When it's set and you know exactly what you needed to do moving forward,
and
it's built around that quarterback and Justin Jefferson, TJ like and the tackles, like exactly what you need to build around, and I think that makes Kwesi and KOC's job long term easier.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So we're down to the final one. I know it's probably all the same position, but Ryan. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
No, it is now that you say it, and I didn't. And he hasn't talked about.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, obviously he's my number 1 guy, right? Wide receiver Marvin Mims.
I'm just baffled you're gonna put him ahead of guys like CJ Stroud. Like,
well, because I like the likelihood of Stroud being available to us is the only reason. Stroud was my number 1.
Sure, but these are your top 5 guys you would pound the table for. And
I pound
my number 1 on that.
Let him get it over with. Let him get it over with. Okay?
Why wouldn't I pound the table for this guy? I think he has the upside to be like the number 2 receiver in this class. I have him ranked number 3, and I'm not alone in this. Like, there's a lot of people who are big fans of him. He's 21 years old.
I'm a fan of him.
5'11", 185 or 183, whatever he's playing at.
Wait, what school do you go to?
I forget. Do you remember?
I don't.
It doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't.
I think it's
like
a
Big 10 school.
I'd never
some Big 12 school or something. But he's got the speed for days. One of the faster receivers in this class. He's separation ability, can stack corners like most people can't in this class. He's really, really good. Very effective run blocker. Like, I think he ranked number 2 PFF best run blocker at that position. Something that's very important for our system and for what KOC is looking for out of his receivers. Obviously, you had mentioned earlier, Miles, about actually I think that was the last show we did, but about getting open, right? And being a nuanced route runner and being able to do that. Now, he hasn't necessarily shown that, but I think his ability to do that is there because I've seen tape of him doing it like in workouts and stuff. But separation ability, being able to block, and speed for days. Great hands, phenomenal at the catch point. Contested catch rate is just fantastic. Like, he's just a great player, and he makes plays, and he's been doing it since a freshman year of college.
Got better every year.
He set all the records in Texas high school football, right, that are all still standing today. Like, he's just a phenomenal prospect, and he's young. He's 21 years old. I'm just a big fan of his. I think that he has the upside to be one of the top 2, top 3 best receivers in this class. And if you can get him at the late second, early third, if we trade back or trade up for him, I think that that's the move.
I do think that when it's all said and done, let's fast forward to like November, December timeframe. We'll look back and people will be like, why did we not value Marvin Mims higher? I do think that
he's going to go in the second round.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's going to be He's going to be he could be the steal of the draft potentially if he lives up to his potential.
Yeah.
I think Miles and I have the same number one, but I'll let you go.
Do we?
Probably if it's receiver.
Is it Jordan Addison?
Yeah. Well, I mocked Ryan earlier because he did a dual one, and I guess I kind of did a dual one as well. But I had Addison and Flowers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I could get down with that too. For me, it's Jordan Addison. He's my wide receiver too. And I haven't wavered off that. I know there's been like fluctuation for some people, but for me, Addison's just that, like, he's got so much nuance, and I think he knows his ability to get open. He's been an alpha. He's been a guy that, similar to Marvin Mims, he's been doing it since his freshman year. He's been doing it with talent, but he's also been doing it with lesser talent as well, to play next to him or with him. I think going to USC was a good move for him, just to like continue that progression with a talented offense. But the one thing, he ended up playing around more talented receivers, so of course you don't get as many opportunities. And they blew out teams, like they were killing some of the lesser teams that they played. But I just think his ability to literally create separation from anybody. I know he's a little more slim, like he's 175, but I mean, he could be 180, 185 and be just fine. Like, I see when I watch Jordan Addison, like if you were to come to the Minnesota Vikings, I'd see him being like a Robert Woods type. I think I've said that before. Like, you move him around the formation. I think this offense looks for guys that can move around. He's not afraid to mix it up in the run game. I'm not saying he's like a great blocker, but he can do it.
Yeah.
I think he could be that guy that you motion him around, get him jet sweeps, but he's also going to create separation and get open on his own. He doesn't need to just be schemed open. He knows how to get open on his own as well. Of course, there's going to be probably issues like most young receivers with press coverage and all that stuff, but I think he has the skills and ability to overcome those things, and to like grow within it. And so he's just a guy I think could be a really good fit in this offense. And like I said, like Robert Woods type, Deontay Johnson was another comp I had for him. I just think he has that, like,
I've seen Adam Thielen as a comp. And it might just be because of the route running ability.
I see Deontay Johnson, but significantly better hands. Like significantly better hands. Yeah. Like Addison doesn't drop the ball like Johnson does.
Yeah. I feel he's not as big. He's not as big and physical as Thielen, so I can't really say that. The route running, like, I think there's some route running like nuance there that's probably, like, you could say is similar, but I think Addison's more twitchy than Thielen. And I think he's not as explosive. I don't think, but he's more explosive than his testing numbers, at least on film.
He's got that short area quickness. So within those 5 yards, he's like,
that's who's winning up the line. He's beating up the line, and he's beating up at the top of his stem. And I think it's hard to beat, and that's going to translate to the next level. And so he's the type of guy, like, Matt, like he's your guy too. So if you want to keep going,
I mean, you've pretty much covered everything about him. I think when you look at that route running ability that he does have and that short area quickness, he's going to complement Justin Jefferson so well, and this entire offense. If the Vikings were to go get him, I do feel similarly about Zay Flowers. I
love Zay Flowers too, by the way.
I'd be fine with either of those two. But
different type of receivers, though, right? Like,
sure, Zay Flowers is more of a deep threat, I would say.
A true explosive receiver in every sense of the word, right? With the ball in his hands and everything. And that's not to say Addison isn't explosive, but it's just a different style.
Yeah. Addison's going to beat you underneath. And he can go deep, but I don't think that's his strong suit by any means. But while Jefferson's stretching the field, while TJ Hawkinson's maybe even stretching the field, Addison will burn you underneath. And so I think, and he's got the run after the catch ability as well. So I think he'll fit well. If we came away with either of those two on day one, I wouldn't be mad in the slightest. So
same.
That's a good list of guys there. If we're lucky to get even one of those on draft night from any one of our lists, I will be super happy. For the fans and audience listening, drop your top 5 in the comments below. We'll do our best to go in and comment on them and give you some of the thoughts that we have, but we would love to hear what you think. So Until next time, everybody, Skol Vikings.